This is Mikey Mason, and you're listening to Why We Game.
I'm Brodor, and this is Why We Game. My guest today is J.D. Cash, majority shareholder in Saltire Games outside Indianapolis.
Yep.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Have a lot more energy than I normally do on the Saturday of GenCon weekend.
Yeah, we're recording this on August 1st, 2020, and there is no physical GenCon, and you're doing better for it?
So that's a loaded question, man. That's not fair. I'm physically have more energy because of it. And the store actually is doing a little better. The Gen-Con is not necessarily the best thing from a business perspective for game stores.
And there are over a dozen places that sell games or hybridized comic game stores, exclusive game stores. And so I suspect that hits everybody.
It does.
Unless you are downtown.
Yeah, and there's really only, another store just opened downtown, so they don't even have data to know on that yet. But there's only one store downtown, really, so it's hard to say. But yeah, it's one of those factors. If you're a game store or Carry Hobby Games in Indianapolis, like definitely GenCon is something that you have to account for in one way, shape, form, or another.
Because you're going to have clientele that reserve income, disposable income.
Yes.
To save for the show. And I'm from St. Louis, and the show's not about me, but just a little context. Long history as a retailer in gaming, and I would leave St. Louis, it's 3.5, 4 hour drive.
Yeah.
Come to GenCon, I would see tons of regular customers.
Yes.
And I worked for 2 different local game stores. I can't imagine if the con is within driving distance of my house. Ooh.
There are definitely benefits too. I'm really big as far as building relationships with publishers and things like that. So it's another touch, another chance to, say hi, as you walk by a booth or catch a drink afterwards later on after the dealer halls close and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely a factor that all local game stores have to deal with, and we all do it probably a little bit different. But the other thing is there's a lot of games that their regular release isn't until September, October, but they'll have a soft Gen-Con release. And so that factors in too. So there's kind of a longer tail. It's not quite as strong as it is leading up, but there's a longer tail to it as well because people want it when they can get it. And I don't blame them. I mean, when I wasn't a game store owner, I wanted things when I could get them too. So I don't fault the gamers, but it's definitely a factor that we have to take into account.
So, and this is for my own personal interest, but a couple of weeks after GenCon, you would see a lot of new products and new releases coming in. Have publishers delayed or slowed down their release schedules, or are you seeing product as usual?
That's a tough thing because due to COVID and everything that's happened, the supply chain hasn't been running as usual.
Right. So even products that were in the pipeline a year and a half ago that have been produced, production, or I should say shipping,
yes.
The logistics side is preventing you from getting that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it has, and it's bottlenecked some things. Some publishers, their releases have been kind of crammed together a little more, I think, than what they had initially intended. Because
WotC they cluster bombed.
I'm not even going to talk about WotC.
Fair enough.
They're, and we don't even do much on the Magic side anyway. So
every industry has their 3 big villains, right? Every industry boils down to 3 corporations that I forget what the theory is called, but every industry will ultimately boil down to 3, right? And I'm personally convinced that Asmodee and Wizards of the Coast have a vested interest in Games Workshop being that third thing. Whoa, construction next door. Sorry, folks. Good times. Yeah, that's all right. I listened to an episode of Ken and Robin talk about stuff that they recorded at GenCon in their hotel room, and they were in a wing that was doing constructions.
Oh, my gosh.
My apologies to the listener.
It happens. It's real.
Yeah. But you're 46.
Correct.
You are a middle-aged Caucasian man.
Exactly.
So you are a classic second-generation gamer. I have a theory that the first generation gamers were the old grognards, And then our generation got into the hobby, and now the new generation, Generation 3, your son, totally different experience in the industry.
Sure, yeah. So I started gaming. My older brother mail ordered the first white box, right? He's 9 years older than me, so there's a little bit of a gap. And
I have an older brother, 6. Is he your hero? Because my older brother is.
I love him to death. God rest his soul. He passed away in 2012 from liver cancer. Yeah. It was, but
the cancer thing's going around in this area.
Yeah. It's my business partner actually is getting ready to start chemo round 3. So if you happen to know Phil Herthel and you're thinking about this, send your good thoughts that way.
He's a great flipping guy.
Oh yeah. He's a fun guy. Yeah. And he's got a great attitude. Yeah, I'm sure he'll do fine because he's so positive. Send him his way. That'd be great. But yeah, my brother, yeah, he and his buddies played, and they would occasionally let me participate, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. I think my job was a lot of times to go outside physically to watch the horses where there were no horses. But, it was like my first introduction to places.
Wait. So your brother would say, JD, I need you to go outside. We're going to LARP this. I need you to go outside and pretend you're watching the party's horses.
Right. So I would be allowed at the table for a little bit, right? But then he was probably 13, which makes me like 4 or 5 years old. Or, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't very old. And so I'm sure I was getting on his nerves. And so to do that, they were like, hey, this is what we really need you to do. And then I go outside, and I don't honestly remember the culmination of it, but my guess is I got bored with horses and just started doing something else for a while. And then I'd eventually wander back in, and they'd let me hang out at the table for a bit, and then I'd have to go watch the horses again. But that was my first introduction to gaming and well, specifically D&D, right?
That's actually an adorable story. Then when did you find your own group? When did you first develop your own party of friends playing the game?
So probably around 11, 12 years old. My mom actually owned, for a short period of time, she had a used paperback bookstore that sold comics and games, which worked out really great for my older brother because he was collecting comics like crazy then. I'm going to say I was in junior high until probably my freshman year. So I was like 12, 13 in that kind of range whenever she had the store. But I had some really off the wall, I had Car Wars stuff. I loved to play Car Wars. Probably didn't play it right.
You're talking the old skinny plastic thing that snapped together and the cardboard chips you had to cut out.
All the cardboard. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. The Auto Duel Quarterly, right? Was it Uncle Albert's? His catalog of machine guns? Yeah, was it Albert? Uncle Al's, I think. Yeah, something like that. So
I'll look it up and try to put it in the show notes.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, so it wasn't just Dungeons and Dragons. It was, some kind of off the Middle Earth role playing. And I'm sure we played none of it correctly. Cause once things started, everything went out the door and everything was overpowered, and it was like we were on our own episode of He-Man or whatever.
Oh yeah, we were teenagers. We did what we called Monty Hall gaming. What's behind door number 3? It's a Vorpal sword!
Right. Yeah. So, but we loved it, right? It was great. We told stories. We had a good time. We'd spend literally hours with grid paper drawing out dungeons, right? That never ever saw the light of day. They never ever came into a game, but it was a lot of fun to imagine it and put the traps in, and I think sometimes the creative side of gaming kind of gets lost to some of the other things, just how creative it is to engage in some of these activities doesn't get highlighted as much as it should.
Well, it's interesting looking at how games have evolved over time. What games were like when we were kids, what games were like when we were young adults, but now games are very, very different. There's a lot more focus on narrative and story structure and having a good overall story building experience as opposed to this grind through crunch. But the crunch grind, that's how we grew up. Right? That's what gaming was.
Oh, and actually, in Boy Scouts, one of the Scoutmaster's sons ran a game, but it was all based on Masters of the Universe. It was all based on, He-Man. And if I remember right, as the Dungeon Master, he played as, the bird. Oh gosh.
Oh, I forget. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, no. Yeah. So man, this is really taking me back. So yeah, lots of great memories.
Right. The sexy Evelyn is a sorcerer.
Yeah.
High level sorcerer with some demonic pact, and Skeletor is a powerful lich. Oh yeah, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. After D&D then and Car Wars, what was the next big thing that really hooked you?
So I really didn't game for a long time after that.
You took a hiatus, so like after high school?
Yeah, like for a long time. I was just into different stuff. I really got into shooting pool, and that kind of took all my time.
You've got kind of a Paul Newman look. I get it. Yeah.
I'll take that as a compliment. I don't know that anyone else will agree, but since this is audio and not video, you can say whatever you want, I suppose.
Oh, it's America still. I mean, at least when I checked this morning, it was still America.
It still is. But yeah, and so I really didn't get back into it until, again, my older brother, he started playing with his son.
So you have a nephew?
I have a nephew, yeah. I've got a couple, but one in particular they played Dungeons and Dragons with, and the other one actually is local, and we keep meaning to get a game going and just never happened, so bad on me. And it was probably 2008, 2009, and I'd actually started, so I'm in the military, and I travel a lot. I do training all over the place. And it's usually...
Right, we're not going to talk about it on the show, but you've got a really interesting position in the National Guard.
Yeah. And it's a full-time position. A lot of people think that National Guard is all just, the 1 weekend a month kind of stuff, but it's my full-time vocation. It has been for a long time.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a lot of emergency response preparedness that the National Guard's responsible for.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes on, but I would travel to all kinds of different places, and I'd always stop at comic because I still liked it. It wasn't that I just wasn't playing, so I had been kind of interested in it, and then he brought it up, so eventually started playing 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and that should cause a great divide right now amongst people. And I will say I feel this about 4th like I do about any role-playing game. It's about the people you play with and the dungeon master, you know what I mean? Like if they can tell a good story and allow the players to tell a good story, the system doesn't matter a bit. But, so that's kind of when I got back into it. And the store here opened in August of 2009, right after GenCon in 2009. And I started coming in right then, basically, and became friends with the original owner, who's my partner now.
Wow. So then you two, how did that conversation come up? I mean, you're talking to Phil and is he looking for an investor? Is he looking for a partner?
So he and his now ex-wife kind of ran the store, but primarily him, for a number of years. And it was a grind. Like he was like physically wore out, and the store wasn't in the best spot. And we'd joked for years that when I retired from the Army, because he's a little older than me, Phil's a little older than me, that when I retired from the Army, he'd probably be about done, and I would just buy it from him anyway. Like we had those conversations on many times, and I used to come in here on Friday nights while Friday Night Magic was going on, and we'd talk business. Like I was super into board games. Like I played Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I DM'd here. I've DM'd a few times at GenCon. I love it. But I was really into board games and spent way too many hours after my family went to bed on Board Game Geek, like reading news and all that kinds of stuff. So I'd come in and we'd talk that, and he'd tell me like some of the, the business side, because he was involved in Gamma, from the beginning.
So it sounds like even though you took a long hiatus, you've always had the bug.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think another proof of that is like just enjoying movies like Braveheart and being excited when they announced The Lord of the Rings was going to be a movie. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff.
So did you watch like Kroll and Beastmaster?
Oh, heck yeah. Beastmaster was great.
It was. It's still good stuff. Yeah. I'll still watch it again.
Yeah. And so, no, absolutely. I will say though, like some of those don't hold up well. Like I've gone back and watched a lot of those, and sometimes I'm a little disappointed, and I'm like, so it makes me kind of not want to watch all of them because I've got a nice memory that may not be completely factual. I don't want to ruin it. Yeah, I don't want to mess it up anymore. That's how I got back into this.
Do you do any gaming when you are deployed? Do you in any of the people you serve with?
So a little bit of board gaming, but that's about it. I'm actually, my job has been domestic related the entire time I've been in the military, just about. So I've actually one of the very few people who've been in the military for the last 20 some years who has not deployed overseas. So I have not had to make the same kind of sacrifice a lot of my brothers and sisters in arms have had to make. And I know a ton of gaming goes on overseas, like a ton of gaming goes on deployment. It's a great way to fill space. You know what I mean? Take your mind off of things.
How has your military career informed your gaming as a gamer? Like, has it had any impact on your game mastering, on your storytelling, on bringing simulationism or more realism to your games?
Probably not. Like I notice things different, and like I have a different appreciation when I read a book that's talking about the things that I specialize in the military, and whether they look like they were informed from watching a TV or a movie, or whether they've actually done some research. And so I've formed some opinions based on like how much effort I view people have put into that. And I'm sure a lot of people do that. Like if you're a medical professional and there's something that's talking about, healing or, I mean, like I'm sure that people look at it through their own lenses. But not so much, and the other thing is like, I try not to, the term I use is steal anyone's fun, right? Like so as someone who also ran a game store for a while in the quote hobby, right? There's a general disdain for like Monopoly.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? But the fact of the matter is it's still like the most popular board game in the world. And there are thousands of families that spend time together playing that awful monstrosity, but they enjoy it, right? And so who am I to tell someone who loves Monopoly that Monopoly is a turd game? To me, that's stealing someone's fun. So whether Pathfinder's not my favorite incarnation of it's too much numbers. I'm much more a story guy. But if you love the numbers and Pathfinder's your jam, who am I to say there's anything wrong with it, right?
What's your take on 5e?
I love 5th edition. I think it's really a masterpiece. I think the flexibility that's inherent in the system, because you can crunch it up if you want, or you can not. So I got a neat little story. So it was one of the last play tests before they actually released 5th edition. I still want to say it was called the D&D experience that year. It's since changed to Winter Fantasy up in Fort Wayne. Takes place usually the end of January, beginning of February. And the same people who run the D&D tables at GenCon and Origins basically run the tables at this. It's a great time. And it was one of the very last play tests before it came out at GenCon that following year. And I'm sitting at this table, and I got to understand, like an excellent GM, like all the DMs, it's Baldwin Games that runs it. All their DM, I've never had a bad DM. So you're getting a top-notch DM. People there are serious. They're role-playing enthusiasts. You don't hunt out a specific D&D convention if you're not a D&D player typically, right? So we're all experienced. So I'm sure that adds to the table, but we got done, and I remember distinctly going, man, this is just like the Red Box. This is basic D&D. Like, this feels so fun. And literally I get done having that thought, and the guy next to me goes, this is just like 3rd edition. And I'm like, just like what? I didn't say anything, and then someone else was like, no, this has got the second, and everyone at the table felt like it was their favorite version of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that's when I knew that it was great.
You have the greatest bloodline for gaming that I've encountered so far, because your mother owned and operated a bookstore, comic book store, game store. You're influenced by your older brother. You take a hiatus for a while, but then not only do you come back to gaming, you end up buying a game store and
I have the best wife in the world.
Yeah, and teaching your sons. Well, it's hard because so many of us say that and only one of us can be right, and no offense to my bride, but I think you are. I think you're the guy.
Yeah. It got to the point where it was like more economically sound to buy the game store than to buy games at the rate that I was buying them. But I will say this though, that part of that, and I'm not going to disagree with you, because certainly gaming is a huge part of my entire family. But I think sometimes what gets lost in that is I do less gaming now than I ever have, right? Like how much I don't sit around and play games as someone who owns a game store. Like I think a lot of gamers, their dream is to own a game store because they think somehow they're going to get paid to game, right? Like they're just going to be their job to game. That's just not a reality.
It's very rare. I was in a game store yesterday. Guy was very nice, not proactive in his customer service, but very nice. He was actually playing a game at a front table with a customer in preparation for a tournament.
Okay,
now,
yeah.
He was, but that's rare. I can tell you I game more now that I don't work as a retailer in the hobby industry than I ever did for the 15 plus years during that time. Gamed significantly less than I do now, even during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy, but do both your sons game?
Oh yeah.
And do you game with them at home?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's how our family has stayed connected. And it's actually one of the reasons that my wife and I were interested in owning the game store is like we see how much gaming has done for our family. Like my 15-year-old, don't get me wrong, he acts like a 15-year-old, but I'm still connected to him, right? Like I can still have a conversation with him for the most part. And we're still very much a family. I mean, we try to, most nights we try to eat dinner as a family, and then when we get done, usually 3 or 4 nights, we'll try to play a game. We've been trying to get a role-playing game going in the house for a long time, but it just doesn't ever seem to materialize.
All right, because you're running a small business and you've got an important job in the military.
I've got an Army career. My wife's a high school English teacher. Our kids are both involved in probably more than what they should be. Thank God for my mother-in-law that helps us ferry them around. But yeah, and I've actually been gaming more because of COVID, because we have to stay in, right? So I've actually got to play a lot more. The other thing I will say though is a lot of time, with the exception of playing with my family, a lot of times like when I'm at a convention or a distributor show, it takes a lot for me to really let go and totally just play a game. I'm kind of always in evaluation mode. To use a board game as an example, like what game is this similar to? And is it better than what it's similar to? I'm in evaluation mode. Is this something that I think that I can bring in and recommend to my customers? Is this something that I think is going to do really well regardless of what I think and I need to bring? So it takes a lot for me to cut loose and just enjoy the game, which I'm trying to do a little more often.
You're in the right age group you lived through the Satanic Panic.
Oh yeah.
How old were you when your mom was running the bookstore, and did she ever have any apprehension about you playing role-playing games?
Oh no, she didn't ever have any apprehension about that because she knew and
Well, now next you're going to tell me that nobody picked on you in school for playing these games.
Oh, no. I got picked. I wish that was the only thing I got picked on in school. I had a mouth and I was a runt, and no, I got picked on all the time. But as far as the satanic stuff, no, it's been around. And in fact, like at one point, my older brother burnt his whole role-playing collection. And I'm talking, yeah.
Wow. What motivated him to do it?
Just some religious influences. We'll just leave that at that. But it's like he had the first print of Deities and Demigods
with the Cthulhu and the Elric stuff.
Yeah. He had the white box. He had all like first print run AD&D. But yeah. Like all the Greyhawk, you name it, man. He had it.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
absolutely heartbreaking.
I never felt the pressure that way. I heard about it, but it was never like a big deal to me.
Yeah, and your parents didn't persuade him to do this. He did this of his own volition from the influence.
Oh, this was as an adult. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, this was as an adult. So.
All right. Well, out of respect for your brother, he's not around anymore. I'll stop trying.
Yeah.
So you are one of many, many retailers in and around the Indianapolis area.
Yeah.
There are quite a few in town. I made a point to visit. Thankfully, I have just enough fingers to count the number of game stores that I visited in the last 2 days. And I have to tell you, I don't need all the fingers on one hand to tell you how many people said hello. It was really disappointing. And part of the reason that I do this trip is that I want to go into game stores and I want to see them. And as crappy as it sounds, I want to see if they're worth my time to talk to. Mike, your employee.
Yeah. He's my manager.
Oh, he's your store manager. Well, your manager was kick ass. And when I was in Gamma and I was doing seminars about management, I would tell people, like, look, you don't want to hear this, but if your employees suck, it's your fault. That's what it boils down to. He's great. That guy is great. He was enthusiastic. He was helpful. He was welcoming. But more importantly, he knew when to leave me alone. Right? He came over. He gauged my interest. We talked a bit. He was open. And then he was like, okay, you're cool. I'm going to let this customer, I'm going to let him shop and let him do his thing. Was really, really impressed.
Thank you.
Sadly, I'm quite underwhelmed at the level of customer service that I received. I mean, some places, the only words that I got were goodbye. That's it. I mean, the amount of shoplifting that I could have done just for their lack of security awareness was stunning. But you don't have the biggest store in town.
No.
You do have, I think, the most diverse selection of miniatures. You may not have the deepest stock levels, but you have a wide variety of miniature games in the shop, which is great because I love toy soldiers. Your role-playing game selection is fantastic. I don't say this because you agreed to do the interview, but I mean, this is bar none one of the best stores in town, and from my personal experience, the best in customer service that I've had.
Thank you. That means a ton. I'm friends with the other stores, and I think we have really nice stores. So
you do. The selection, the selection, the stores are nice in town, man. They really, really are. But it's wild to me because I mean, it's not like I was ostracized because I'm other. I mean, I look like 90% of the clientele.
Sure, yeah.
It's just that they were bad at their jobs.
Well, I'm not going to go there.
Well, now I am going to go there.
Okay.
if you cannot say hello to somebody who walks in your store,
right.
I'm not giving you a damn dime.
Right. No, that's fair. And it's like probably the number one thing that I try to instill in when people are working here is like, you've got to at least say hello. So part of the problem with having a diverse selection is everyone who works here can't be an expert in what we have all the way around. In fact, no one here is. Like everybody has their leaning one direction or another. This is somewhat embarrassing, but we started carrying Games Workshop again about 3 years ago.
All right. Well, hold on a second. Let's slow down. You stopped carrying Games Workshop products.
Yeah, Phil did, my partner.
Can I get your perspective on why?
So from what I understand, he was just tired of their crap.
Huh. That's not unusual.
And he used to have 24 foot of slat wall dedicated to Games Workshop. And the next day he didn't. It was all on sale. He just got tired of them. Well, I guess it's 3.5, 4 years ago now. They got a new CEO or president.
Yeah, they really overhauled things.
And there was a guy who called and talked to Phil probably 6 or 8 times over a 6 to 8 month period to find out why. Cause we used to be a huge account. Like it used to be, I think we used to be one of the biggest seller of Games Workshop at that point in time. And when it just pissed him off.
If you had 24 linear feet of Games Workshop product on the wall, you definitely would have had the best and most selection of Games Workshop stuff, at least from what I've seen recently.
Right.
Well, your GW section now is not that big. Not as big as it was.
Well, actually, I don't know that that's true because we are at the highest stock level for GW. Actually, we're probably wider than anyone else. I know we're wider than the Games Workshop store. We're just not as deep and it's not all faced out. In fact, very little of it is faced out because I've got too much of it. Not too much. But what I was going to say is like I was headed this direction is the point of we all can't be experts on anything. We had carried Games Workshop for 2 years before it finally dawned on me that there were no good guys in 40K. Right?
What do you mean? Those Space Marines, they're basically paladins. I mean, they're
basically.
heroic.
Yeah, and in fact, my rep was like, cause we talked and I'm like, man, I'm doing really well with your product, but I feel like a lot of it's on accident that I don't know Games Workshop product that well. I'm like, I don't even know like who the good guys are in 40K. And he's like, what did you just ask me? It's like, you don't know what's going on. And so and I'm learning more about it. That's definitely my weak link. I'm stronger in board games and role-playing games and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so the challenge with staff really is to get them to still engage with a customer when they're not in, quote, the department that they're comfortable with. Yeah, it's something I want everyone to feel welcome. Like I carry things in the store that I don't think, like I think some of it might never sell, but I want it, if someone comes in, I want them to see something that they're comfortable with, right? Even if they already have it. So probably the area that I need to beef up the most is like the bookcase war games. So I've got like a couple command and colors and I've got an order coming from multi-man for advanced squad leader.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of stuff.
Wow, that's old school stuff right there.
It is, but,
not the command and colors. I think Richard Borg's a genius, but the ASL stuff.
Yeah, the ASL, I'm trying to find a good line on the GMT games. They're just hard to get in, and I've sent a couple emails to them to see about if they do direct. And again, I don't think it's anything that I'd turn over a lot, but if you're into that kind of stuff, like you go into a game store today and you don't, I feel like there's like a pseudo invalidation there. If that's my jam, if my jam is old school war games, the chit games, the bookcase games, that kind of stuff, nowadays there's very few places you can go where you're going to see.
It's as if the industry has evolved past the Gen 1 gamers.
Right.
The chit and war gamer people that spawned this, we don't cater to them at all.
At all. And they're the reason we're here. Right? That all begat Dungeons and Dragons, which begat everything else, right? And it's not the easiest product line, but like I have a little bit of nice chess sets, and I just want people when they come in, if whatever their slice of gaming is, I want them to see a little bit of it, to kind of feel at home with it. Yeah. And it's not possible. Like there's just too much, but I try, and at the same time, it's got to be welcoming to new people, because the hobby has got to continue to grow, right? That's the way it survives. And so
that is a good philosophy, and it's obvious that your employees embrace that as well, is that they want people to enjoy where they're spending their time and where they're spending their money. I'm assuming then, once you have mustered out of the military, that you're going to do this full-time?
Oh, yeah.
Your kids have any interest in doing this?
I don't know. And that's part of the reason why my son works here. Because he really hasn't, I think, clicked on anything that's got him like excited as a potential career. He's interested in this. Last year he worked Origins and GenCon in the booth with us. Selling, doing demos and all day, and he does a great job.
So, wait a minute, you guys do a booth at GenCon?
No, we help other companies with their booth.
Ah, okay. So that makes a lot more sense.
So I do credit card processing, I submit sales tax, I provide the workers, and then...
If I'm going to have a booth at GenCon and I don't have any XP doing those things, I can reach out to you and say, Mr. Cash, I need some assistance with X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea that you did that. That's super cool.
Well, it's kind of my way of leveraging, like, not having good business on either side of GenCon. It's a way that I can get a little income. It gets badges for my employees, right? Cause they're all working down there instead of here. And part of it is getting the exhibitor badge to be able to work the booths and whatnot.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say, I couldn't imagine that you would have your own Saltire Games.
Oh, no. I mean, what's the point?
That'd be insane. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah.
Like every one of those companies has their own.
I'm just going to take $2,000 and light it on fire.
Yeah.
And that's just the start.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the deposit, I think.
So I had some retail questions for you.
Sure.
Do you guys do any kind of online sales? And I ask because I've talked to a few retailers who have really put forth some concerted effort during the time of the pandemic to broaden their clientele.
Yes. The answer is yes. We have probably about 80% of our inventory online. We've gotten a lot of new stuff in the last few weeks, and none of that is on there yet. It's actually quite a process because you need a good photo of it, and manufacturers, publishers, they don't always have great photos for me to use. And so hunting that down. Need a good description. That's not always available either. And then you also need to have a weight.
Oh, of course, yeah, because you have to calculate your shipping.
To calculate shipping. So it's a lot more involved than just bringing a new item in. We do have it synced with our in-store inventory, so I've wanted to do it for a while, but just could never justify the input, the time it would take to do it. And hundreds of hours have gone into what we have so far, and I'm not happy with it. I'm happy with where it's at, but I'm not, we've got a ways to go still. I want my customers to be able to, they couldn't sleep, they watched a YouTube video on whatever game and pop over, see that we have it in stock, buy it with an in-store pickup, right? I've wanted that for a long time, and just, again, for the amount of effort that I had to put into it, couldn't justify it. Well, obviously COVID put us in a position where we had to do something.
Yeah, it's funny. You're not the first retailer to whom I've spoken who has said that COVID not only did it force us to make these changes, but conveniently it provided the opportunity to make these changes.
So, and I really would like to do more with it. Like I really intend, I view it almost, cause right now the online store probably doesn't make me any money. It probably costs me more to run than I'm actually getting sales wise right now. But what I can't measure is how many people are browsing online then coming in the store. I really don't have a way to measure that so much. I can see how many people visit the store and metrics like that, but I haven't been doing it long enough that I can compare that with anything else and have an idea what it means really. Right now it's just gathering numbers.
How did you get that scar on your lip?
Oh, so I was working at the golf course. So my bachelor's degree is in turfgrass science. So like taking care of a golf course.
I didn't know that was a degree you could get.
Right. I didn't either. Until I was working at a golf course and I was like on the grounds crew and I'm like, this is awesome. I think I could do this as a career. And I asked the superintendent I worked for, they actually had 2 superintendents at the time. And so I was like, so how do I go about this? And like, well, you go get a degree in turfgrass science. And I started laughing initially because I'm like, what? A degree in grass? But yeah, so in fact, I was working towards a master's degree before I went full time with the military. But yeah, so it was the winter. We were rebuilding everything. We rebuilt all the mowers in the winter and, do a bunch of maintenance projects like that. And they were trying to teach me how to weld. So first they were having me to cut some old welds apart so I could re-weld stuff, right? And, I was using a cutting wheel on a die grinder and the wheel.
Oh, Jesus, that's scary.
Oh, yeah.
It came at your face.
Yeah. No. It busted off the arbor and flew into my face. 30,000 RPMs, right?
And that's the extent of
That's the extent of it. I had no dental damage. Like talk about being blessed and having someone's finger on you, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
gracious.
I wasn't wearing a face shield.
If you were like, well, Mike, I actually tried shaving with a straight razor once and I never did it again. I was like, oh, okay, cool. We'll move on.
No. Yeah, yes.
Freaking angle grinder blade shoots in your face.
Yeah. Oh. So that's where that came from.
I would have pooped myself.
Oh, well, I was like, we're in a shop and like your face is very vascular and bleeds a lot anyway. And this is a nice like gash, right? So blood is just flowing from my face. And the only thing I have, like they go grab a shop rag. It was a clean shop rag, but it's a shop rag nonetheless, right? It's not sterile, that's for sure. But a clean shop rag and put some ice in it out of the ice machine because like my face is instantly swollen up. Right. I'm bleeding like crazy. Take me to the emergency room and it was, I ended up getting the stitches without anesthesia because they gave me the anesthetic, and then there was like a major car crash that came in the ER and everyone had to like this person was dying kind of thing. And I had been there for hours by the time they came back and they're like, all right, we're ready. Are you numb? And I didn't even care at that point. Right. Like I just, I probably should have cared, but, so that's actually kind of a crazy story that he latched onto there, but.
I have a tendency to look at people and then just fixate on details, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's an interesting story. Just that little mark on your face.
Yeah.
It makes for interesting conversation. Anyhow, what is your Magic the Gathering presence like in the shop?
I stock some, but.
Do you sell singles?
Not anymore.
So how long has it been since you stopped selling singles?
A year.
And is it better or worse without Magic singles?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you cut out a product line, it's not necessarily better, but, most of what we had was basically sorted bulk at the point in time, like it'd been picked over. We don't have an active Magic the Gathering community, where I get the back and forth, I get the trade-ins and, that kind of thing. And so it was just taking up a lot of space. And, like I said, I didn't have a community that was supporting it. So we just pivoted and I had got a really good customer that was about the only one that was buying any of it anyway. And I gave him a real good deal on 90,000 cards going all the way back to beta. But again, it was all like there were a few real gems left in this collection, right? And left in our selection of singles. But he really liked building crazy decks and playing Commander and that kind of stuff. And so we worked out a deal, that made sense to me.
How has your non-Magic the Gathering clientele responded to the fact that there isn't a lot of Magic the Gathering sales going on in the store?
I honestly don't know that they even notice.
Okay.
Like I don't know. I try not to, again, it goes back to, I don't want to steal anyone's fun, right? So Magic isn't better than Dungeons and Dragons, which isn't better than 40K, which isn't better than Pathfinder, which isn't better than board games, right? And so, in fact, there's been an occasional where one group kind of, look at those nerds kind of point of view at another group, and a couple times I've had to point out, look, we're all nerds.
Yeah, we're like kettle, get out.
Yeah. So, I try real hard not to give priority to any group. We have a really robust 40K crowd, and when we were running events in the store, pre-COVID, Friday nights were pretty much all 40K. They took up everything, but they grew to that, and it's fine. And we always
see the 40K community has to love the fact that you don't have a big active Magic community because they have a place to play on Friday nights.
On Friday nights, yeah. But if we still had, 20 or 30 players that were playing on the regular on Friday night, then we probably would have 40K on Saturday night or Thursday. You know what I mean? Like we would have
adapted.
We would have adapted. Part of me, Magic is a product line real similar to Dungeons and Dragons. It's a pillar of what gaming is today, right? It's even though I think in a lot of ways, the hobby has passed Settlers of Catan, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Settlers is like white box D&D at this point.
Right, but it still sells, and you have to have it, right? You just have to. So we still stock Magic, and I would really like if a crowd did develop here, but I can't make people play one game or another. Building, and that's actually probably the biggest challenge and the most failure I've had in the business is trying to develop game groups. There's a certain organic nature to it, and without that, your one or two product champion customers that want to make it happen, I haven't figured out a good solution of I want to get game A going without already having someone to make it go. You know what I mean?
So you're essentially looking at becoming your own champion for specific games, or maybe having your employees champion games?
Employees champion games. Usually it's a customer. Usually it's someone who's not working here and they, it's their thing. I try to, take care of them in different ways. Whether it's limited edition stuff here or there, giving them preference or whatever the case may be. But usually it's a customer that's excited about a game. And so.
Well, and that goes back to what you had said earlier, that you as the retailer and your staff, there are so many products available today, you can't know everything.
No.
And you have those few areas of expertise, but something that the consumer often doesn't understand, they walk into the game store has, thousands of different SKUs, and you like one or two games and you're an expert on those one or two things.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
You can't crap on your local game store for not having as much knowledge as you do in the nuances of 40K.
Exactly.
It's just not.
No,
there.
but it's also, I think a thing, and I'm very involved in peer retailer groups.
Oh, so you're in, the game manufacturers association.
Yeah, I'm in Gamma, and I'm in a half a dozen different Facebook groups, probably more than that if I were really to count them a lot of manufacturers have retailer Facebook groups so they can communicate straight with us and get feedback and that kind of thing. And there are a number of retailer only type groups and industry groups. And there are, I would say there are a number of store owners that seem like, or at least they communicate the frustration like they think their customers owe them kind of thing. Right. And trying to realize that my customer is here to get a game and they don't care how hard my day is. Or that Ravensburger put Marvel Villainous in Target 2 months or 3 months or whatever their exclusivity is before I get it, right? Or that this game wasn't supposed to release at GenCon last year, but it did, and I had a bunch of pre-orders that now I don't have the demand to fill them because they all bought them at the con. You know what I mean? Kind of customers don't care about that, and nor should they. In all honesty, nor should they. This is their release. This is where they get away. I have conversations like that with certain customers that I have really close relationships with, usually that have an interest in the business side of it. But yeah, no, it's I get when they do. I get when they are frustrated. And it also kind of goes back to what I said before about I want to have something in here that's familiar to you, right? Because if you come in here and your game is whatever RPG and I don't have whatever RPG, then you think less of me as a game store, or you think that I don't support the way you game. Right.
Or they think that I'd go to the first part where they think that you have a gap in your knowledge base for the industry because you don't have a microscope on the shelf.
Right.
Where there are people.
I'm pretty sure I do have a microscope on the shelf.
the three listeners who are like, I love microscope, right?
Yeah.
But mean, there's plenty of game stores you go to. There are games that I love that I own that those places may have never even heard of.
Yeah. It's just, and it's damn near impossible to keep up with. It really is. And there's plenty of information outlets, but I want to say that like last year there was in the neighborhood of like 5,000 gaming releases. And that's not like including 300 different paints in a new paint line. No, right. You know what I mean? Like that's new products.
Yeah, or things like Seventh Continent that, or Mechs vs. Minions that are huge Kickstarters
right.
that you can't get.
That I can't get. And we kickstart a lot of things in the store.
If I can, if I can intervene and just ask, so you kickstart as a retailer?
Yes.
Do you work with your clientele to have them purchase or basically back Kickstarters through Saltire Games?
Correct.
How does that work?
Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. Because particularly in the board game, there's so much product in the board game. Our main focus is we want to make sure that we have games to introduce people to the hobby. So a lot of what we carry is on the light to mid side. And particularly when you get into heavy hobby board gamers, there's so many of them and it's so specific, right? With the exception like Gloomhaven's super popular, but at that weight of a game, there's not too many games
21.24 pounds
that that have that much, complexity, right? But yes, it's also a physically heavy game. You just can't go that wide, right? And so one of the ways we try to like really support the super board game enthusiast is by allowing them to kickstart through the store. So they don't have to pay shipping that way. They have to pay sales tax, but they don't have to pay shipping and they don't have to pay for it up front. So we suck that up for the most part.
That's gotta be difficult.
It is. But it's a two-edged sword. There's some days where I'm like, we're not going to ever kickstart another game again. And then there's some days where like, I feel like I should be kickstarting half a dozen other games, than what are there.
Well, and it also provides an opportunity for you to prove your bona fides to the clientele. You're in the know. You're aware of what's coming up.
Right.
You're aware of what's popular. In addition to that, instead of shying away from Kickstarter and admonishing it and, you're just spitting venom at Kickstarter, you say to your clientele, Kickstarter's a thing. It's here to stay.
Right.
Let's work together.
So we have like under our Facebook page, we have a Kickstarter group, right? And so a lot of times one of my customers will go on there and say, hey, here's a game. Is the store interested in doing this? And then if 2 or 3 people hit on it, I'd be in on it. We'll look at, some Kickstarters have a retailer tier. Some don't have it published as a reward level. So sometimes we have to reach out and ask questions. If they have a rewarder tier that makes sense for me, because some of them have horrible, horrible margins. And by the time I have to pay for shipping with a horrible margin, I can't do it. It doesn't make sense. And they're, probably 1 in 4 that someone posts up. I come back and say, hey, look, this is not going to work for the store. So if you're interested in it, you should probably Kickstarter direct, right? But
you have an honest and open discourse with your clientele about that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I usually don't get into what the actual numbers are, but I usually say the way they're doing it is not going to work for us as the store. Looks really cool.
Yeah. I might back it myself personally, but yeah.
Right. And that's how it goes. And I try to not have to take deposits. So Kickstarters that I paid for, so there were a couple that when COVID hit, I reached out and said, hey, if you have the ability to go ahead and pay for it, that would help out because I've already paid for it. I'm not asking you to pay for product that I haven't paid for yet either, right? I mean, this is stuff that we're for sure getting. There's no risk here. You're going to get your thing.
It's just that things are tight and I need some money.
And I need some money. And I was real clear, like, look, if things are tight for you, cool. It's not a have to. It's not a mandate. But if you're someone who is continuing to work and aren't having, those kind of issues, it would help. And I had a number of people help out, and it did make a difference, and we're good to go. But so we kind of look at Kickstarter as a way to kind of service the more hardcore, mostly board game enthusiasts. We do kickstart quite a few role-playing games, but most of that is just, I don't think it's ever going to get in any kind of distribution, and I want all the role-playing games on my shelf. So,
a man after my own heart. Really are. So my final question for you, sir, and this may be a bag of worms, but so the conspiracy theorist in me wants to do an entire episode about the Freemasons, but my show is about
gotcha.
And not about conspiracy theories. But you and Phil are both Masons.
Yes, so is Mike. So is our manager.
Oh my gosh. So no. There you go, conspiracy theorists. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
That's right. Right.
So how did you get into the Masons?
One of the hobbies I had there in between gaming was I got into my own genealogy, and my maternal grandfather was very involved in Freemasonry. He was a Shriner. He was a Scottish Rite Mason. I have a million pictures in regalia, right? And so it was interesting to me. I never really knew him. He passed away when I was like a year old, so I never knew that grandfather. But then I also found out doing my genealogy that like almost every man on both sides, that I could find in my family was a Mason, or going back further, a lot of them were Odd Fellows, which was another popular fraternity, the International Order of Odd Fellows. And so I was like, you know what? I'd heard all the, the stories and the weird stuff, right? The conspiracies.
I've read books and magazines.
Right. And my faith is super important to me. Like, it's the central thing in my life. My belief in God is number one to me. And I was like, I'm not going to do anything that taints that or that messes with that. But then on the other hand, I'm like every male member of my family just about has been a part of this. And I don't think that they were Satan worshipers or, you know what I mean? Like any of that Illuminati, kind of stuff. So, I got an invite to an open house. So I went and checked it out. I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And,
yeah, I mean, if you were in a sorority or in a fraternity in college.
Oh, I wasn't.
I suspect that Freemasonry is a similar thing, but for adults.
Yeah. And well, in fact, most of like the ritual and stuff in a lot of college fraternities is taken straight from our ritual in Freemasonry. I've got a number of brothers at the lodge that were, in social fraternities in college, and there are definitely some familiar parts to the process.
I bet.
It's good.
So you guys don't secretly run the world.
Look, we can't decide what we're going to eat for dinner. Right? That's my favorite part about it. We're no different than any other group of anyone.
Any other fraternal order.
Yeah. The thing that I find it remarkable is mostly it just celebrates men, period. Like, it's men congratulating men on doing well at whether it's our ritual or leader. It's just a very congratulatory organization. And I think in a time and in an environment where everything is so competitive, and it's so measuring stick man against man kind of thing, that to just have a room applaud you for the effort you did in memorizing the speech that was part of a ritual, I think that is a very healthy endeavor, for community. So yeah.
JD Cash, or as I like to say, Mr. Cash, the retailer. I want you to change the name, because Saltire, for the people that don't know what a saltier is, it's not saltier. They're not angry, mean, snarky people.
No.
It's saltier, which is a heraldry term.
Yeah, it is. I don't know all the background to it. Like my Phil, whenever they name the store, he has more information behind it. But a lot of it, one connection is to Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Because saltire is
basically you've got a field with an X of a contrasting color.
Right. Yeah. And that's Scottish. It's the Saltire cross is what St. Andrew was crucified on, and that's kind of where that comes from. And so that little connection is part of the reason it's Saltire Games. Actually, most people say Saltire, including some of my employees, and it's funny to me. We have a general Facebook group outside of our pages. It's just the Saltire Games Facebook group or whatever. And the question to make sure you're not a robot or whatever is, how do you pronounce does it rhyme with ear or does it rhyme with tire? And so people either have to choose ear or tire and both get you passed.
Oh yeah.
You just gotta answer the question, right? And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like Drizzt or Drist.
It's Drizzt. I mean, I'm not an expert. We should probably ask Mr. RA Salvatore.
I did.
Okay.
So maybe this is a cliffhanger for another time. One of the last things I did with my older brother before he passed away in September 2012. It was either that GenCon or the GenCon before, but we went all out. I was a VIG and we played, and this may have been the year before, but we played the Legend of Drizzt board game with RA Salvatore, with Bob Salvatore.
Wow.
And he's like the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah, he seems pretty chill.
He is so, cause he was like, hey, play whoever you want to be. He's like, they're all my characters, so it doesn't matter. He was Regis. But
now, is it like the books? Did no one got killed? Or if they did get killed, they just come back.
The game is not super lethal. So it wasn't, I don't know if you ever played it. But it was a lot of fun and we asked him about it and he said that he refuses to answer it. It's a great mystery. He loves the debate. Like either one is fine with him. Like he's not going to correct anyone either way.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Well, JD Cash, owner of Saltire Games, thank you so much for your time.
It's been fun, man. It's been fun.
Why We Game is a production of the Influence Foundation. All rights reserved. Audio editing by Brodor. Music by Owen Godwin.